to look at today is the sweet potatoes. Remember, I planted 5 in the greenhouse and I've planted 5 out in the allotment, and I just wanted to see how they compared with each other in growing. Obviously the ones in the greenhouse stay warmer and they stay more humid, which is actually what they prefer. Last year I just grew them all outside, so I'm going to dig them all up now because it's about 2/3 of the way through October and it's starting to get very cold, so the ones down the allotment, the frost will get them soon, so they're not going to grow, so I'm going to take them up. First of all, I'm going to show you the ones in the greenhouse. Right, well hopefully you can see, these are the ones, I grew them in a compost bin, in a compost bag. And these are the leaves. They've gone absolutely haywire. I had to rescue one because it had buried itself between the metal bit and the glass on the greenhouse, so I had to pull that free. But the top bits are absolutely brilliant. When I go down the allotment in a minute, I'll show you the ones down there and we'll look at the green tops on those. But I put a little stick in a metal pole to sort of hopefully that they'd wind up, but they did sort of wind themselves around all the shelvings at the back. So that's them on the top. Let's have a look and see how they're doing underneath. Now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take the tops off. I'm just going to cut them off with the secateurs just above ground level, just so I can actually then see what I'm doing. We don't need these tops anymore, so they can go in the compost bin. But there we go. Let's get rid of all of those. And at least when you grow stuff in pots, it's much easier to make sure that you've actually got everything. Whereas if you plant them in the soil, then you have to dig around. It's like digging around for your potatoes. Whereas if they're in a pot, you just empty the pot. Now what I've got here is I've got a big plastic tray. So I'm going to empty everything in here and see what I can find. Right, so here goes. I have been watering these. If you want to, you can cut down the side of the bag, but I want to use the bag next year for something, so I'll just empty it. Now I really haven't the faintest idea what's going to be in here. Oh. Now I just used stuff from the compost heap. That's all I put in here. So there are bits of eggshell and all sorts of bits and pieces in there. Goodness me, it's very compact, which hopefully is a good sign. And can you see all these roots down the bottom here? So these are from the sweet potatoes. So I'll just have a rummage through. I might need another, I think I'll need another one. I think I'll need another one, so I'll just see. Oh look, there's a little one. They're not very big. Anyway, I'll have a rumble through and I'll then come back to you and show you what I found. Well, a bit disappointing, frankly. I'll go up to the allotment in a minute and see what's how they're doing up there. But that was basically all I found. Was these 2 very, very tiny ones. One sort of a bit bigger, and then these 2, which, you know, are okay. Okay, but, you know, not as good as I thought. But I tell you what, we'll go up the allotment now and we'll dig the ones up the allotment and we'll see how they compare. So I'll see you up there. Right, okay, we're down at the allotment now, so I'll show you the ones down here. Hopefully they've done a bit better than the ones in the greenhouse. But first of all, I'll just show you the tops because something very interesting has happened with those. Right, well here are the tops. As you can see, they're not as long as the ones in the greenhouse. But it's not what's on top, it's what's below. And also you can see that they've gone very wilty. That's because they've had we haven't had a frost, but it's been very, very cold, and they don't like the cold weather, so these aren't going to grow anymore because the tops have wilted. But every single one of them, actually there's a little bit underneath here which is okay, but generally speaking it's all gone. It does tend to be much colder down at the allotment than it does at home. It's sort of in a frost pocket. So I'll just take the sticks out and then we'll dig one of these up, and hopefully it's better than the ones in the greenhouse. Right, here goes, fingers crossed. So dig right the way down as far as you can, and oh gosh, it's travelled. Blimey. Let's give it another go. Oh, they are, ever so slightly. They're still smaller, but here we are. There's one. They look like a pair of cows udders, don't they? Right, well that's one. I'll have a dig, and then I'll dig some more, and then I'll see what else I can find, and then show you in a bit. We don't want that because that's a weed. That's the grass. Right, well I've just dug all of them up. I didn't take the tops off of these ones because, unlike the ones in the greenhouse, because they weren't that big. But I seem to have got more from planting them outside, which is not what I would have thought personally. I would have thought that because they needed a warmer sort of more humid temperature, that they would have grown better in the greenhouse, but apparently not. It's not a huge haul. They're not as big as the ones you get in the shop, but they'll do one meal. So, well, so I suppose. Right, well, that's what we do experiments for. We see which grows best in one situation and which grows best in the other. From that little experiment, and they got planted at exactly the same time, treated exactly the same way, the ones outside seem to have done better, but not as good as I hoped. I don't think I'll plant them next year. I might give them a couple of years, and then maybe if something else dawns on me, then I may well plant them again in a couple of years' time maybe. But at least I've tried and I've given it a go, and that's the whole point of planting. If you do want to get them, they are very easy to grow, but you know, like potatoes, you can't see what's going on underneath until you dig them up. So just because it is nice and big on the top doesn't mean to say that you've got lots underneath, as we found out in the greenhouse. But if you do want to plant them, it's very simple. All you need to do is get the cardboard kitchen rolls, fill it up with compost, put a hole through it, get a cane, just make a hole, and then just put the slip in there, and then just let it stand in some water, and the cardboard tube will soak up the water, so it will keep the compost moist for longer. And then when all worries of frost have passed in your area, then you can plant them outside. Plant them outside as you would with potatoes, and plant them in that tube as well, that cardboard tube. The cardboard tube will biodegrade, because I planted these in the cardboard tubes, and there is absolutely nothing left of them. And then just when you've had your first cold night and the leaves have started to go, or they start to lose colour, then it's time to dig them up, because they're not going to grow anymore. But very, very easy. But you know, that's a little experiment, and you know, that's enough for one dinner, so I'm not completely depressed. Anyway, I hope you found that useful, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye.